I'm Ashley, 28 years old. I got married to a colleague who had been working at the same company before me, about 2 years ago. My husband Noah, who is 2 years older, was the one who made the first confession of love. We couldn't have children for a while after getting married, but thinking it was about time given our ages, we started trying to conceive and successfully became pregnant. We're expecting the baby by the end of this year. Now that my morning sickness has settled, I've entered the stable mid-pregnancy stage, so I'm starting to think about various preparations for childbirth. I lost my parents early, so I am deeply grateful to his parents, George and Madeline. They are also eagerly looking forward to the birth of their first grandchild. They live quite in the countryside, so we don't get to meet often. But they always say, you have to take good care of yourself. Make sure you eat well to give birth to a healthy baby, and send us nutritious foods and fresh vegetables and fruits they grow themselves. Thanks to them, I've recently gained a bit of weight, probably because I've been enjoying too many fresh veggies and fruits now that I'm in the stable period. I have older sister. Her name is Patricia, 32 years old. She's already married and has a cute daughter. My 3-year-old niece, Emily. Noah's big brother, Harry, who is the same age with Patricia, adores her and is already declaring, I'm not letting her marry off, and anyone who asks for her hand in marriage, I'll knock him out. Patricia just laughs it off, saying, silly, isn't he? Well, it's a lively but good family. Now that I'm pregnant, my sister has become a great mentor, offering me advice.
Ask me anything you don't know, okay?
Since she's experienced, I'm looking forward to learning a lot from her. She also has some baby items she no longer uses, which could help with our expenses. When I go to the gynecologist, my sister Patricia accompanies me. Our doctor, Victoria, is a seasoned female physician. She is kind and trustworthy. Once, we even had Noah join in for a lecture.
First of all, the pregnant woman is the center of everything. Her needs come first.
Oh yeah, is that so?
Noah looked nervous.
Of course, I'm not saying the husband should do all the housework. Pregnant women need some exercise too. However, you shouldn't let her carry heavy items or reach for things on high shelves. Let her exercise moderately, but don't overdo it. That's the basic rule.
I see.
Noah nodded to the doctor's explanation. Don't worry, I can handle cooking and shopping. So, it would help if you could assist with cleaning and laundry. I straightforwardly asked Noah for help.
Well, that's not much different from now. Leave the heavy shopping to me.
He responds with a smile. It makes me genuinely happy that Noah is so proactive in saying such things. I quit my job after getting married, and now I work part-time at a local supermarket, cashiering and stocking shelves for about 3 to 4 hours, 3 days a week, which is easy on my body. Many coworkers who have given birth before are considerate and offer advice. Recently, Noah's job has become busier. Since we worked at the same company, I am familiar with what he does. It's a clerical work, so except for the fiscal year end, there shouldn't be much overtime.
I've been busy because I started a new department. I was put in charge along with some younger colleagues, and they made me the leader.
But I'm worried about him overdoing it.
I have to try hard because I'm going to be a dad.
Just don't overdo it.
Yeah, I'm taking breaks appropriately, so I'm okay.
He reassured me. Then, one day, I got a call from my cousin.
Hey Ashley, I need some advice.
His name is Thomas. He is 2 years younger than me and just got married last year. His wife is Alice. They were classmates and have been dating since high school. He recently found out she's pregnant and often consults me, since I have a bit more experience. So, what do you want to know?
Well, Alice's morning sickness is really bad, and it's hard to watch because she's suffering. She can't eat anything because she can't stand the smell of bread. What should I do?
Silly, isn't it? If she can't eat bread, let her eat cake, right?
That's like saying Let Them Eat Cake by Marie Antoinette, or A Cake Logic. Anyway, seriously, tell me, how were you at that time?
I just gave up on things that smelled bad and ate what I wanted to eat. Also, I made sure to drink plenty of fluids. Oh yeah, having mint-flavored chewing gum or candy helped me feel better.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Ashley. If anything else comes up, I'll call you.
If my older sister Patricia is mentoring me about childbirth, then my cousin Thomas is my protege. Our houses are close, and since he runs his own business, it's easy for him to find time, so we had many opportunities to meet even before he was married. On the other hand, my husband Noah started working more weekends, saying it was due to his job. He wanted to sort through the documents he collected during the week all at once on his days off. Lately, we've been spending less time together, and I've felt Noah's attitude changing. One night, upset about his frequent holiday work, I complained. "Can't you do something about work? You said you'd support me with the housework, but I'm doing it all." My belly has grown so much that even cutting my nails has become a challenge.
This is an important time for my job. Couldn't you support me a bit?
Instead of just ignoring my requests, he started demanding support from me. I understand, but it's hard for me too. My belly is already this big.
I'm trying hard for our child too. Don't just push your own agenda on me.
And what?
I heard you've been meeting a man outside recently.
What? A man? Oh, that's just my cousin Thomas. He helps me with shopping when you're not around.
Cousin, really? It seems like you've been meeting him several times for a while now.
He's family, so of course we meet.
Well, just bear with it a little longer.
We remained somewhat strained as the due date approached. Then the labor pains started, and I headed to the hospital. Patricia accompanied me to the hospital.
The birth canal is already open, so let's go straight to preparations for delivery. After you give birth, you'll be admitted for postnatal care.
Patricia contacted Noah, but he said he was too busy with work to attend the birth or help with the hospital preparations. So, Patricia took care of all the hospital preparations. 5 hours after arriving at the hospital, I successfully gave birth to a baby boy. Despite the excruciating pain, the midwife said it was a very smooth delivery, and seeing my baby's cute face even made me think it was a good experience. That night, Noah came to the hospital.
Give Ashley some praise for her hard work. You should hold him too.
The doctor Victoria spoke to Noah with a smile. I was exhausted in bed, but I imagined Noah's happy face. However, Noah didn't smile and remained silent even as he looked at the baby. Then, Noah muttered something.
Is this really my child?
What? What are you saying? Is that your first question? I was dumbfounded.
He'll grow on her.
Trying to compose myself, I followed up with what Victoria had said. This is our child. Let's work hard to raise him. Even so, Noah was expressionless. Then, suddenly, he said,
Doctor, I have a request. Please do a DNA test on the baby.
What? I was speechless at Noah's words. For a moment, I didn't understand what was happening. Considering a DNA testing, does he really doubt he's the father? That's ridiculous. Victoria was also taken aback.
Well, we can do that, but that's not something you should say on the day of the birth.
She tried to dismiss him, but
Please, by all means.
Noah was adamant and requested the test. Do you doubt me? That's terrible. Really terrible. Postpartum pain forgotten. I shouted loudly.
I just want to know the truth. If it confirms the child is really mine, that's all that matters. I'll be relieved. Or is there some reason you're worried about the test?
Is he suggesting I have something to hide? Really terrible. I'm not asking for gratitude, but demanding a DNA test all of a sudden is the worst. Sensing the futile argument brewing, Victoria intervened.
Let's do the test.
She agreed, albeit reluctantly. I was unhappy, but since I knew the child was definitely mine and Noah's, I decided to accept the challenge if he insisted that far. When Noah left the room, I broke down in tears. I had thought Noah would be happy. Instead, the fact that he doubted me enough to demand a DNA test. Later, as Noah had requested, we did the DNA test and decided to discuss the results when Noah visited the hospital the following weekend. On the day of the report, Noah appeared unusually calm. In the hospital room, Victoria pulled out the report.
I'll just tell you the conclusion.
Okay.
The result of the test shows that the likelihood that Noah is the father of the boy is.
Victoria paused to take a breath, then announced.
0%. This child is not Noah's biological son.
What? I was speechless and nearly fainted. That can't be. I can't think of any reason why. Yet, how could this be? My mind went blank. Noah smirked and said,
I knew it.
Then he said triumphantly,
You're trying to pin a child from an affair on me, aren't you?
and then he pointed at me.
I want a divorce. You're entirely to blame. I'm going to demand a hefty alimony, so be prepared.
With those parting words, he left the hospital room. I was left utterly dumbfounded. I consulted with Patricia and Thomas. Patricia listened to my story quietly and then became indignant.
Being falsely accused like this, it's no joke. We need to give him a taste of his own medicine.
Yeah, I've got it all covered, so you can rest easy. Ashley,
Thomas said, smirking confidently.
This isn't a comforting conversation.
Patricia was angry.
yeah, right.
Thomas chuckled, seemingly amused. I couldn't tell if they were serious or just enjoying my misfortune. Later, I got a call from Noah.
I've decided to go through with the divorce. My parents agreed to. I'm the victim here, so I'll be seeking alimony. Maybe around $30,000.
I'm thinking of leaving it to a lawyer. Is that okay? I informed him.
Fine, but you're paying for the childbirth expenses yourself. I'm not spending a dime on someone else's kid.
Have it your way.
Yeah, I will do as I please. I'm a stranger now. If you can't pay the alimony, I'll take the house and land. As the victim, I have that right.
Noah was adamantly aggressive. That house and land are inheritance from my deceased parents.
I don't care. Anyway, I'm busy preparing for the divorce. I'll contact you again.
I reported Noah's call to Patricia and then we proceeded with our next plan. I was soon to be discharged from the hospital, and my cousin Thomas came to pick me up in his car.
Good job. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling much better, but I have to keep going for this little one's sake. I gazed down at the small life wrapped in a baby blanket.
Right, I've got it all covered. Let's give that no of yours double, no, triple payback.
We talked about this as we arrived home. My house, which I hadn't seen in a while, looked completely different. Noah had moved all his belongings out. The empty room only had the baby items I had prepared left behind. And there was a note from my husband. The note read, "I'm leaving the house. I won't come back. I'm not returning to my parents' house either, so don't bother looking for me. Only contact me if necessary." If he wasn't going back to his parents' house, I knew where he was headed. Really, he's quick with things like this. I sighed in exasperation. Shortly after, I received a call from Noah. Perfect timing. As soon as I answered, Noah yelled out,
What do you think you're doing? Sending that stuff to my office.
"Oh, about that. Well, since you wouldn't tell me where you are, I had to send it to your office, right?" I responded nonchalantly.
How could you? My boss demanded an explanation, and I had to tell him about our divorce. Thanks to you, the whole office knows, and now everyone is looking at me strangely.
It seemed my plan had indeed caused a stir around Noah. "It's none of my concern. You saw the contents, right? Make sure you come to the lawyer's office. Don't try to run away."
Woo's running away. You'd better be prepared to. I'm ready to fight this through.
Apparently, the notice of content arranged by the lawyer had reached his company. I can just imagine Noah panicking. Yes, Noah's encirclement is nearly complete. And then, we had a discussion about the divorce at the lawyer's office. Noah's parents were also present. I was accompanied by my sister Patricia and her husband. Her husband is Harry. Harry, who works in construction, treats me like his own sister. And then the discussion began. Ashley cheated and had a child, then tried to pass it off as mine and raise it on my money. This is highly malicious, so I demand not only alimony but also compensation for the house and land in Ashley's name. This was Noah's main reason and condition for the divorce. Oh wow, he's quite bold. I was fully prepared and at ease. The lawyer explained.
We understand your story. However, even if the divorce is due to infidelity, property division will occur. And don't expect all your demands to be met. If there's a disagreement between the two of you, it's my job to mediate. I will make a fair judgment based on the facts. Please understand that.
If that's the case, then justice is on my side. Having an affair and giving birth to someone else's child is practically fraud. Should we call the police?
Ashley, that's terrible. We were happy about having a grandchild, and to find out it's not Noah's child.
Doing this makes me sad. The most pitiful one is the child who was born, right? Please make amends and at least raise the child properly.
They all spoke up.
No matter if a lawyer gets involved, what you did can never be forgiven. I'm entirely innocent and a victim. It's crucial how much Ashley reflects and apologizes to me. How about it? Do you feel remorse and are you ready to apologize?
Noah seemed entirely convinced of his victory. Now's the time. No. The one who needs to reflect and apologize is you, Noah.
What did you say?
Taken aback by my unexpected counterattack, Noah stood up suddenly. I continued calmly. Just give it up. I know everything.
What are you saying? I know who your affair partner is. I'll demand alimony from him too.
I decided it was time to present my trump card. Actually, I've invited someone here.
Who is it? One of your accomplices.
Noah shouted, fully ready for battle. I said in a teasing tone, "You're not too bright, are you? I'm the victim here, so it's the witness."
A witness?
Thank you for waiting. Please, come in. As I spoke, two people entered through the door. Noah's mouth hung open in shock.
You are. And you are.
Yes, it's Victoria, the gynecologist, and my cousin Thomas.
Hello.
Victoria greeted.
Nice to meet you. I'm Ashley's cousin, Thomas.
Thomas introduced himself.
This guy is Ashley's affair partner. You're cousins, and you had a child together.
Please don't say such rude things. I live nearby, and I was just consulting because my wife Alice is pregnant. I've always seen Ashley like a friend, never as a woman.
Hey, that's a bit rude, isn't it, Thomas? I'll have to scold you later.
I'd like to say my piece soon.
Victoria interjected with a wry smile. Sorry, Victoria, please go ahead. I urged her to explain.
Thank you. So, to put it simply, the baby is undoubtedly Noah's and Ashley's child, according to the DNA test results.
What?
Noah exclaimed in shock.
But at that time, you said it wasn't my child.
You bribed the lab technician to falsify the results. When my husband, who is the hospital's chairman, confronted the technician, he broke down crying and confessed everything. We even recorded that confession.
I might confess too if confronted by her husband.
Damn it.
Noah bit his lip.
Patricia thought the test results were suspicious and brought your hair to request another test. Normally, we don't do that, but I got convinced after talking to her, Ashley's sister, and the retest confirmed the baby is indeed both of yours. And the technician who colluded with you has been fired. It's a matter of our hospital's credibility.
George was shocked by this.
Noah, why would you do such a thing?
George stood up and confronted Noah.
That's,
Instead of Noah, Patricia answered for him.
That's because Noah was the one having an affair?
What?
His parents gasped and were speechless.
When we went shopping in the city, Patricia saw Noah walking with an unknown woman. It was Saturday, and when she checked with Ashley, she said Noah was supposed to be working that day. So it seemed suspicious, and she asked Thomas to look into it.
Turn 2, Thomas said proudly.
Yeah, actually, I used to work part-time at a detective agency during my student days, so I'm good at investigations.
He began bragging.
And then we found plenty of evidence of the affair. Here's a recording of that time.
With that, Patricia played the voice recorder. It captured Noah and another woman's voices.
We'll get her DNA test and fake it as someone else's child. That way, it'll serve as evidence of the affair. There's a suitable guy. He's supposedly a cousin, but we have photos and can frame it as an affair. If it works out, I can push all the blame onto Ashley and get a divorce. I'll get alimony, and since she had a child, I can claim the house and land too. I'm the tragic hero. There's no problem with you and me being together. How's that? I'm a genius, right?
More like a villain than a genius, you know. You're like a bad guy from a drama, aren't you?
Their laughter followed on the recording. Stopping the recorder, Thomas added,
Your partner is a younger colleague from your own team at work.
Noah's face turned pale. With such compelling evidence presented, there was no room for him to argue.
Well, now that the facts are clear, it's my turn.
The lawyer said with a smirk. Then, pulling various documents from an envelope, he began to explain.
Here are Ashley's demands. She requests a divorce from Noah. She has stated that she will not pursue the matter of the DNA test falsification, so we will not address it here. We will seek alimony from Noah and the woman he was involved with. Additionally, we will demand property division and child support from Noah.
His parents were utterly stunned by the unexpected turn of events. Noah, intensely questioned by Patricia and me, was utterly devastated. I filled out the divorce papers, signed my part, and had Noah write his portion. The completed divorce papers were promptly submitted by the lawyer. After leaving the office, we celebrated with drinks at a nearby bar, and thus, I divorced Noah. I received a substantial amount in alimony and a lump sum for child support. By the way, I named my son Adam. It seems his parents had advanced the money. Noah was completely cut off from his parents. He is said to be repaying the debt little by little. Noah's affair partner was a woman from his company. Their affair during work hours came to light, and both were dismissed for violating company policies. Abandoned by that woman, he struggled to find new employment and is now working part-time at a gas station. I live with my son, Adam. He's still young, so I've taken a leave of absence to focus on childcare. It looks like we'll manage with the alimony for a while. Adam is adorable, and as I took photos and videos, my cousin Thomas edited them and uploaded them to a video site. This unexpectedly became quite popular. Thanks to the site's popularity, I even started earning money from the videos. The earnings were substantial, so I decided to save for Adam's future. My parenting is supported by those around me. Patricia, of course, and the ladies from my part-time job also helped. Especially the ladies, who would shop at the supermarket on my behalf when I couldn't go out. And the manager would deliver them to my home. In fact, the manager, who was also divorced, was encouraged by the ladies to get closer to me. When Adam turned 1, the manager proposed to me. Despite being a manager, he's down to earth, works hard, and treats everyone equally, which I really appreciated. Since he always delivered groceries to our home, it didn't take long for my fondness to turn into affection. I happily accepted his proposal. Adam had met him many times and was fond of him, and he seemed trustworthy because he cared about Adam. Although I accepted his proposal, We couldn't get married right away and went into a preparation period. Recently, Adam started calling him Dad. It seems I've managed to recapture the happiness I once let go. This time, I'm determined to hold on to this happiness tightly. As I watch Adam's peaceful sleeping face, I made this resolve.
Really? You've been living at your parents' place since the divorce.
Living with your parents means you're still single, right? Sorry for rubbing our happiness in your face like this. Oh, that's right. Give us a wedding gift. Celebrate with us that we're having a baby, will you?
Don't be so cruel. But seriously, you've aged. You look like an old lady now. Wait, you're 39 this year. Breaking up was the right decision.
10 years ago, my husband left me for my younger sister, who is 5 years younger than me. That sister and her husband came to our parents' house because they were expecting a child. My sister, rubbing her big belly, and my ex-husband, patting the head of their child, were blatantly showing off their happiness. I've moved on from what happened 10 years ago. I'm fine with not being married anymore, so don't think your actions will make me feel bitter.
Don't put on such a brave face.
I'm not pretending. People have different values, right? My values have changed, and I've decided to live for my work instead of getting married or having kids. My career is going well now, and I feel very fulfilled.
You should just admit you're jealous. You, a hired nail technician, saying your work is going well, feeling fulfilled, sounds like the howling of a loser to me.
As I was troubled by their persistent bragging, my mother, unable to watch this any longer, stepped in to mediate.
Please, listen calmly. What Olivia said about living for her job and it going well is true.
What do you mean?
After this, they would find out how much I had changed over the past 10 years, leaving them at a loss for words. I am Olivia. I'm working as a nail technician in a nail salon at 29. My husband, James, is 3 years older and works for a building maintenance company. We met at work 3 years ago. Although the person in charge has changed now, my husband used to be responsible for the building that houses the nail salon where I work. Because of this, my husband and I would sometimes meet inside the building. The reason we started dating wasn't due to any dramatic incidents like being trapped together in a malfunctioning elevator or him finding me after a work mishap and offering comforting words. Instead, it was after he had approached me with a smile several times that he suddenly asked me out to dinner. So, the reason was essentially him hitting on me. Normally, I would ignore such advances. But the nail salon where I work is full of beautiful women. Despite that, I was flattered he approached me, so I decided to take him up on his flirtation this time.
Olivia, you're always smiling so beautifully. I see you sending off customers, and they always leave looking so happy. That means they trust you and are satisfied with your work, right?
I hope they feel that way.
I'm sure they do. Have you been a nail technician for long?
Since graduating from vocational school, so it's nearly 6 years now.
6 years, huh? That's a significant milestone. Are you thinking about the next step?
Not a step, but my ultimate goal is to open my own nail salon.
That's admirable. I've been silently working in building maintenance for 10 years. I need to take a page out of your book.
I think persisting in the same task daily is also commendable. Initially cautious, by the end of our meal, I was more relaxed, and the conversation with him flowed smoothly. Contrary to my expectations of frivolous talk from someone who picked me up, he engaged in serious discussions about work.
Would you like another drink, or maybe switch to a soft drink?
Moreover, he made sure I didn't drink too much and proactively cleared empty plates before I could.
It's getting late. Shouldn't we head home?
He also made sure to end our first dinner early, around 9, considering it was our first outing. However, finding him to be a good person made me wish the night hadn't ended so soon. This made me start to take an interest in him. Whenever I saw him in the building, I would hope he'd speak to me again, pausing nearby in anticipation. It felt like a school kid loitering around their crush, hoping for attention. My silent appeal seemed to work as he continued to approach me, leading to a successful relationship. After dating for 3 years, we decided to get married. Marrying meant we had to greet our parents. I had no worries about introducing my sincere husband, but I was anxious about other matters.
Welcome, come in. Dad's waiting in the living room.
Sorry for the intrusion.
At the entrance, my husband's greeting to my mother sounded a bit higher and quicker than usual. It seemed like he was a bit nervous. When I smirked from behind him, my mother saw my face, and her cheeks softened with a smile. However, as we followed my mother down the hall and stood in front of the living room door, my previously amused expression became tense, mirroring my husband's nervousness. I stepped forward with a prayer-like hope as my mother opened the door.
"Ah, you've come. Please, have a seat."
My father, sitting on the living room sofa, gestured to the sofa in front of him. Relieved it was just my father in the living room, I let out a sigh of relief.
"Have you introduced James to Emma yet?"
I haven't even told her about the marriage yet. First is to inform you and Mom, right?" My expression softened again. Emma is my sister, 6 years younger than me. I was worried that my parents might have called her over, which made me anxious. There's a reason I felt uneasy about my sister. Her character is too exuberant. Her exuberance began when she was in her second year of high school.
Hello, big sis. I've got something to ask.
What?
Where do high schoolers do it?
What? What are you talking about?
High schoolers can't get into love hotels, right? None of my friends know either.
That's not what you should be talking about.
It's okay. He's really my boyfriend.
That's not the point. Hearing your candid words shattered the innocent image I had of my sister from her younger days. After telling her I didn't know, I immediately called my mother. Has Emma changed recently? She called earlier, and she seemed quite different.
Well, Emma, she's got a university student boyfriend from her part-time job. I've been warning her, but she doesn't listen.
Indeed, she does seem the type not to listen. My mother seemed troubled about Emma. If she wouldn't listen to my mother, she likely wouldn't listen to me either. Yet, as her older sister, I felt I had to at least try. You've been coming home late every day. You're only 17, right? Can't you have a more wholesome relationship? Mom's worried about you.
What's this? A lecture? Stop it. I'm already 17, you know? Times have changed since you and Mom were young. Let me have my love life.
Sigh. So, you won't front to Mom and Dad if anything happens, right?
Don't worry. I won't.
She was old enough to know better. But earning her own money seemed to have given her the wrong impression. My parents and I, thinking too much admonition might only strengthen her defiance, kept our warnings to a minimum. Yet, Emma's exuberance didn't cease and only intensified upon reaching university. Her social media was filled with photos in revealing outfits, always in mixed gender groups. Having a good time holding a bottle of liquor at some store. She shamelessly posted photos of herself hugging and kissing men. Each time a different guy. She seemed to be thoroughly enjoying her life. My parents and I hoped she would become more serious once she started working, eventually stopping our admonitions altogether. Since my sister herself prefers to be left alone, I've decided there's no need to intervene unnecessarily. That's why I didn't want to introduce her at such an important occasion as the introduction before marriage. With her absence, the introduction went smoothly without any issues. Now that we've greeted my parents, it was time to inform my sister about the marriage. Holding my phone, it felt heavier than usual as I dialed her number.
What? Big sis, you're getting married. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, when will you let me meet your husband?
What?
It's not fair to only let mom and dad meet him. I want to meet your husband too. You're not planning to keep me from meeting him until the wedding, are you?
All right. I was talked into making a promise to let my sister meet my husband. But introducing my husband to my sister is just natural, and they were bound to meet sooner or later anyway. So, I figured it's all good. However, I would come to regret not being more careful about when to arrange their meeting. 2 weeks after the marriage introduction, my husband and I met my sister at a cafe.
Wow, so this is the guy you're marrying. Handsome, and he seems serious too. You caught a good one.
Hey, that's a bit rude, isn't it?
Always so picky, aren't you? James, do you get troubled by her nagging? If anything, you can talk to me. I'll set my sister straight.
She doesn't nag. Olivia is a good person.
Huh? Is that so? So, James, what do you like about my sister?
Enough already. That concluded the marriage announcement to my sister. On the way home, I hesitantly asked my husband about his impression of her. Were you bothered by all her prying?
She's lively and seems like a good kid. She wasn't as bad as I was led to believe.
Maybe she's calmed down a bit now that she's working. By the age of 23, my sister had become a working adult and had moved on from wearing revealing clothes. Though she was a bit presumptuous, she refrained from saying anything vulgar. It was a relief that my husband's impression of her wasn't as bad as I had feared. A few months after informing my sister about the marriage, with the uncertainty resolved, our wedding preparations went smoothly, and we got married. My face was constantly relaxed in our blissful newlywed life. However, that happy phase was already starting to wane. Will you be home late again today?
Yay, I think I'll be home late again today.
I left the house before my husband, feeling lonely from the morning. As soon as I stepped out, the door slammed shut behind me, and I heard the loud click of the lock. Despite being newlyweds, our days began like this. My husband rarely had to work overtime, and I worked late hours at the nail salon. I had imagined a life where my husband would warmly welcome me home. But now, when I return from work, my husband isn't there, and I find myself taking off my shoes in a dark entrance. This is far from the newlywed life I had imagined. However, it seems this late return is only temporary.
Someone quit suddenly, so I have to fill in no matter what.
But are you okay working so late all the time?
It's just until we find someone new. And there are people who work much more overtime than me. If I can get home before the date changes, it doesn't even count as overtime.
Despite the increased workload, I felt reassured seeing him talk about it with a smile. It didn't seem to bother him. Since he's working hard, I couldn't ask him to come home early. I decided to pray that his company would hire someone new as soon as possible. Yet, 3 months passed, and his return remained late. Moreover, he started working on weekends too. His days off are Saturdays and Sundays, and I work on weekends, so even without his weekend work, we couldn't spend time together. But with the continuous overtime, and now weekend work, I was worried about his health. Are you sure you're okay with all this work and no rest?
Huh? My health? It's fine, really.
He was as energetic as ever. Despite the late returns and weekend work, he didn't seem stressed. The thought of infidelity briefly crossed my mind. But we had just gotten married. It was impossible for him to have an affair so soon into our marriage. I felt guilty for even suspecting him. Another 3 months went by. His late returns persisted. The thought of infidelity began to occur more frequently. However, I kept dismissing it, believing he wouldn't do such a thing. For about half a year, I've been deceiving myself, but an incident that forced me to confront the possibility of his infidelity happened. An emergency closure next Saturday, I muttered, holding a notice at work. The building that housed the nail salon where I work needed repairs, requiring us to close for the day. If he didn't have to work that weekend, we could spend the day together for the first time in a while. Excited, I went home and waited for his return. Working this Saturday too.
Yes, why?
When he came home, I immediately asked about his schedule, only to find out he was indeed working. My excitement turned into disappointment.
Why?
Just because. No particular reason. Although disappointed, I quickly thought of something positive and decided not to tell him about the temporary closure. My spirits lifted again as I put away his work clothes. The following Saturday, I'll head out first, then.
All right, have a good day.
Pretending to go to work as usual, I left the house. Exiting the house, the door slammed shut, and I could hear the lock clicking into place. After leaving, I spent some time at a cafe, then went to the supermarket to buy ingredients, and returned home before noon. All right, let's do this. Rolling up my sleeves, I started prepping for cooking in the absence of my husband. The ingredients I bought were extravagant, and the dish I planned to make was both time-consuming and labor-intensive. I thought of surprising my husband, who is always busy with work, with my cooking. I imagined his shock, thinking I was at work. I rhythmically chopped the vegetables. About an hour into cooking, I heard the front door unlock and open. It seemed my husband had come home unexpectedly, throwing me off. For a moment, I didn't know what to do except stop cooking and try to be silent. Weekend work didn't guarantee a late return. I regretted not confirming his return time, chastising myself silently.
Let's go straight to the bedroom.
Again. What about taking a bath?
Using the bath would make it harder to keep it a secret, wouldn't it?
I could hear my husband's voice from the entrance. But he wasn't alone. A woman's voice. Moreover, I recognized the woman's voice. There's no mistaking it, as it's a family member. The voice belonged to my sister. The conversation I overheard between my husband and my sister at the entrance almost confirmed their affair. Yet, part of me still hoped it was a misunderstanding.
Oh well, it can't be helped.
My husband and sister didn't come toward the kitchen. Instead, they went into a bedroom located midway down the hallway. They didn't realize I was there, as I was being very quiet and had muted any sound, so it seems they didn't notice me. Careful not to make any noise, I silently moved towards the bedroom. Mixed feelings of wanting and not wanting to know the truth made it hard for me to move forward. Finally reaching the bedroom door, I listened in on their conversation.
You're going to divorce her, right? When?
Wait till a year has passed. It'll be easier to say it was due to incompatible lifestyles or personalities.
But you initially said 6 months. I've been waiting for half a year based on your word.
Half a year in, her excitement about the marriage hadn't faded. Divorcing so soon after the wedding would look bad, don't you think? Just wait a little longer.
So, no matter what, you'll divorce her after a year, right?
This was no misunderstanding. Despite the door, their conversation was clear. My husband planned to divorce me, and my sister had been waiting for our divorce for half a year. They must have been involved even before we got married. That's why I didn't want to introduce her. Realizing the affair, I thought it wise to gather more evidence before confronting them. Yet, anger isn't easily controlled. Driven by emotion, I flung the door open with such force it could have broken and confronted them. What's the meaning of this conversation?
What? Big sis?
Why are you here?
My sister was sitting on the bed I shared with my husband. Both looked as if they'd seen a ghost, their eyes wide with shock. However, within seconds, as they grasped the situation, they started to say things I hadn't anticipated.
Seems like you heard everything.
Now James can run away. This actually works out in my favor.
They appeared defiant, sporting eerie smiles. Defiant people are strong, and there's nothing scarier than that. I experienced this firsthand.
You heard us, right? So, divorce me.
What? I was taken aback by my husband's words, my body freezing like stone. It wasn't just the demand for a divorce that shocked me. I was shocked that, in this situation, they calmly presented me with a divorce.
We're serious about each other. It's just that God made a mistake in the order He introduced James to us sisters.
James, you feel the same.
Of course I do. You're 29 and already an old lady, but Emma is only 23. You might be pretty for an old lady, but you can't beat the beauty of youth, right?
Is that it? Looks, Emma, you're okay with being chosen for your looks.
Being praised for my looks as a woman is a good thing, isn't it? You might say looks shouldn't decide, but everyone has their own values. I'm happy to be praised for my looks, especially being called prettier than you. Who works in the beauty industry?
It would have been great if you had actually opened your nail salon. Nail businesses have a profit margin of over 90%, right? If it were successful, you'd be rich. Then, even as an old lady, you might have seemed attractive because of your income. But in the 3 years we've been together, nearing 30, you've done nothing.
I do nails for my clients. Stop belittling my job satisfaction. Were you always this obsessed with money?
Money is important, right? I work at my company because it has less overtime. You'd have been perfect if you were rich. 2. Disappointing.
I've just started working, so my salary is low, but I learn more than a vocational school graduate. I have a university degree and work for a corporation, younger than you. I'm an upgrade from you.
Being with Emma is clearly better. So, let's break up.
Disgust and nausea overwhelmed me as I looked at my sister, still sitting on our marital bed, and my husband earnestly asking for a divorce. As Emma said, everyone has their values. Using money or looks as criteria for a marriage partner isn't necessarily bad. However, it's clear that my sister's act of stealing my husband was wrong. Likewise, my husband who easily followed my sister is equally to blame. Fine, let's divorce.
Yes. Thank you, big sis.
Emma's expression was like a child being given candy. Unlike the past, her smile now only brought me anger. Divorce is fine, but you'll be paying for the affair.
Affair? What are you talking about?
What? You two are having an affair, right?
We were dating, but we haven't been physical yet, haha. If we did that while I'm married, I'd have to pay alimony.
But I heard you talking about the bath, and that you've been together for 6 months.
You must have misheard. We haven't had a physical relationship. If you claim we had an affair, you need to prove it. Did you record our conversation? Have any photos of us entering a hotel?
My husband ostentatiously took Emma's hand. He has a triumphant look on his face, as if to say seeing this much isn't enough to prove an affair. I was speechless. I didn't want alimony. I just wanted them to feel some pain. If I couldn't get alimony, it didn't matter. But his smug expression made me regret not gathering evidence. I didn't want to see them together, let alone catch them in the act. If they were having an affair, I wanted a divorce as soon as possible. That's why I confronted them. From the start, it was as if I was destined to lose this battle.
What's wrong? Your face and eyes are all red.
Won't you say something?
As my resentment towards them bubbled up, I didn't know how to respond, and tears began to fill my eyes. Not wanting them to see me cry, I ran out of the bedroom and left the house. Thus, my marriage ended before even a year had passed. Completely defeated by my husband and sister, I quit my job in shock and returned to my parents' home. After explaining the situation, my parents were furious, and my sister was disowned. This means my sister and I won't have to see each other's faces at our parents' home anymore. It means I can live there with peace of mind. 10 years after the divorce, I was still at my parents' house. After 10 years, the wounds from the divorce have surely healed. I can only vaguely remember that day now. Since I'm almost forgetting about it, it would be fine to move out, but my parents have turned 70. Therefore, without being asked, I just decided to stay at home as a single person, without remarrying. As if to reopen the wounds that had healed over these years, my sister contacted my mother for the first time in 10 years.
Emma called, asking if it's okay for her to come home for childbirth. What do you think?
What do you mean?
It's her second child. The first one is still small, and it seems quite tough.
Maybe she thinks it's about time to come back home after 10 years.
I told her I'd get back to her, but what should we do?
Why not? Let her come. As I replied with a mischievous smile, my mother looked at me with a somewhat exasperated expression. It seemed like a sign from her to do as I please. It's like God has given me the opportunity to let out the vengeful feelings that I couldn't explode 10 years ago. 3 days after my mother called my sister, she came home.
I've returned.
My sister came back, so I went to greet her at the entrance. Although I was supposed to hate even seeing her face, my steps were light. Welcome back. It's been 10 years.
What? You've been living at home since the divorce?
Yes, that's right. Not only my sister came home, but also my ex-husband and their child. The child must be around first grade. Maybe feeling uneasy in a strange place, the child was holding both of my ex-husband's hands. It was a cute sight. Perhaps, if the child wasn't my sister and my ex-husband's, I might have found the child even cuter. Looking at my sister, my gaze was drawn to her big belly. Then, I inadvertently made a face as if thinking marriage might not be so bad after all.
So, you've been living at home all this time, which means you're still single, right? Sorry for flaunting our happiness like this. Oh, that's right. Give us a wedding gift. Celebrate the fact that we're having a child.
Don't be so harsh. But man, you've aged. You've become quite the old lady. You're 6 years older than Emma, so you're 39 this year. Look at the difference between you and Emma. Breaking up was the right decision.
My sister rubbed her enlarged belly, and my ex-husband patted the child's head, flaunting their happiness. Also, as they thought my parents weren't there, they said whatever they wanted, thinking it was just me. It's as if the continuation of that day 10 years ago is happening right now. However, I don't really envy the sight of my sister and her husband. I've come to think that marriage isn't so great after the incident 10 years ago. Even if you do that, I won't feel bitter.
Don't put on a brave face.
I'm not putting on a brave face. Everyone has their own values, right? My values have changed, and I've decided to live for my work instead of getting married or having children. My work is going well now, so I'm very fulfilled.
It would be nice if you could just honestly say you're envious. You, a nail technician, saying your work is going well, fulfilled. It sounds like the howling of a loser.
I truly don't envy my sister and her husband. I believe there are as many forms of happiness as there are people, but my sister and her husband, who are convinced that getting married and having a family is happiness, keep flaunting their happiness. As I wondered how to explain so they would understand, my mother, seeing the situation, came out.
Oh, Mom, long time no see.
Did you hear our conversation just now? It's not like that. This is, like being shy because we met for the first time in 10 years or something.
Thinking that my mother heard their conversation with me, my sister and her ex-husband started making excuses in a panic. My mother spoke to my sister and her husband as if to admonish them.
Please calm down and listen. What Olivia said about living for her work and it going well is true.
What? What do you mean?
Olivia, she started her own nail salon, and it's doing well.
What? Is that true?
Yes, it's true. Now she owns 3 nail salons. She's also running an eyelash extension salon a bit, and dealing with beauty products.
And her annual income is?
It's over $200,000, I guess.
What the heck? You used to say nails weren't about making money, but for the clients. In the end, you're just making a giant profit from it. It's over $200,000.
Don't say such unpleasant things. I opened the second and third stores because the first one did well, and I wanted more people to enjoy nail art. I started the eyelash extensions and beauty products due to high demand from customers. The increase in annual income was a result of that, not because I expanded the scale with money in mind.
I can't believe it. My sister became rich from nails.
It seemed beyond their imagination that I had become a nail salon owner, as my sister and her husband were at a loss for words. For me now, making customers happy with my nail art is the greatest joy. This fact, conveyed by my mother's assistance, seemed to finally make my sister and her husband understand that I genuinely do not envy marriage or childbirth. It was time for conversations not suitable for children's ears. Thinking the talk would continue, my mother took my sister's child further inside the house. My mother really provides the best assist. Now, I can beat my sister and her husband without holding back. By the way, you said you'd earn more than me with your college degree, right? How much are you making now? My sister couldn't say anything back, and just rubbed her belly to distract herself. Feeling good, I decided to be a bit mean, as if taking revenge for 10 years ago. What's wrong? I mentioned my income. Shouldn't you answer when asked?
I'm part-time, so about $10,000.
Part-time? So, you quit your company job. With part-time income, you can't surpass mine. How about you? Are you still working in building maintenance?
Yo, still at the same company. About $35,000 a year.
What? Your income hasn't changed much from 10 years ago. Weren't you supposed to learn from my ambition? My sister stopped rubbing her belly and answered in a voice that seemed to mutter in frustration. And my ex-husband, too, looked down at the ground as if bowing, answering in a small, insecure voice that seemed about to vanish. Even showing off a big belly and a child, my values have changed, and they look down on me for being just a hired nail technician. But I opened my nail salon and became an owner. They completely failed in trying to take the upper hand over me. I think my words to my sister and her husband are mean, but they's resentment from being cheated on and divorced 10 years ago, so I hope this much is forgivable. I'm fully satisfied with having hit back at my sister and her husband's attempt to take the upper hand. However, there's been something on my mind for the past 10 years, and there's just one thing I really need to confirm. Hey, James, do you have any intention of coming back to me?
Huh?
If you can decide right now to divorce Emma and come back to me, I might consider reconciling. My ex-husband seemed to ponder for a moment. Seeing that expression, I quickly threw the next words. Just kidding, obviously. No need to take it so seriously. I didn't intend to mock my ex-husband. I just wanted to see the couple's reaction. Just as I didn't miss the moment my ex-husband pondered, I didn't miss my sister's expression either.
Why would you hesitate there? You were supposed to refuse right away.
No, of course I was going to refuse.
Don't lie. You were planning to leave me and the kids. We're miserable because you don't earn more.
Can you even say that? You said we'd work hard together when we got married, yet you quit your job so soon. Even if you switch jobs, you don't last, and now you're saying you'll work part-time for the rest of your life because of the pregnancy. What does that even mean? You, on the other hand, keep buying cosmetics and clothes without making much money.
My mean comment sparked a fight between my sister and her husband. I figured since my sister lived freely from high school to college, she wouldn't last in a strict corporate job. Moreover, from what I've heard from my ex-husband, it seems like my sister has a carefree attitude towards money, like a student who doesn't worry about living expenses or income. My ex-husband, on the other hand, showed his true nature when we divorced, wanting money easily. I thought that if I hinted at reconciliation, he would immediately agree. Both of their reactions aligned with my expectations, and it appears that the relationship between my sister and her husband was easily broken. I don't deny choosing a marriage partner based on looks or money. However, I wanted to check if choosing a spouse based on looks or money really leads to a successful marriage. It seems my sister and her husband had been harboring grievances against each other, and like a dam bursting, they began to complain and argue vehemently. While some couples may do well choosing partners based on looks or wealth, at least it doesn't seem to be the case for my sister and her husband. Their argument heated up, and their voices grew louder. If this continues, it might disturb the neighbors, and the children, who were taken to the back of the house, might hear them. I decided it was time for them to leave. If you're going to argue, could you please go home and do it there?
What? But I came back here for childbirth.
In this situation, it's fine by me, but I live in this house too. Besides, you might have forgotten, but when you two came to this house, you both bad-mouthed me, and Mom heard everything. In such an awkward atmosphere, do you really think you can calmly give birth to a healthy baby? My sister was silenced by my words, unable to retort. It seems I've won completely. The reason I had my sister and her husband come over was to make them understand that even after 10 years, there's no place for them in this house. I was also to make them feel the frustration I felt from them 10 years ago. Mom, Emma and her family are leaving. Having achieved my goal, I called out to my mom, who was in the back of the house, to bring out my sister and her husband's child. After they got reunited, my sister and her family trudged back home. Later on, my sister gave birth to their second child. With 2 kids, money becomes more necessary. It seems my sister and her husband started arguing even more about money. After letting out their grievances at our home, it seems they began to openly complain to each other without holding back. Eventually, my sister and her husband got divorced. The children were taken in by my sister, but she couldn't support them on a part-time job alone. Therefore, my sister's children ended up being taken care of at our parents' house for a while. This was a condition suggested by my ex-husband when my sister took custody of the children. The plan was to return the children once she started working and her life became stable, but it seems she quits jobs quickly, so it looks like it will be a long road ahead. My parents are happy to live with their grandchildren. The kids have grown attached to my parents, and I worry the younger one might start thinking of my mom as their mom. As for me, my work continues to go well, and I'm considering whether to open another new store.
I was shocked when Mom died, but meeting Lily here turns those sad memories into good ones.
Really? That's great.
As I was about to enter the waiting room, I stopped when I heard a man and a woman talking from inside. Cracking the door open, to my surprise, there was Tom and a young woman, stark naked, embracing each other.
Lily, I love you.
Oh, stop it. You probably prefer your wife, don't you?
A woman called Lily, in a sweet voice, tried to ask Tom his true feelings.
No way. She's just a maid to me. I married her because she was convenient for childcare and stuff. Who would marry such an ugly person?
Hearing Tom laugh heartily, I felt a surge of anger from the pit of my stomach. Tom, I can't follow you any longer. You'll regret making me angry. My name is Susan. I'm 39 and work at an advertising agency. As everyone knows, the advertising agency business is incredibly demanding. So until I was 30, I was so busy working that I couldn't even think about my personal life. However, I finally started thinking about getting married. My colleagues, who joined the advertising agency at the same time as I did, got married one after another at the right age, though I had no idea when they found time for romance. Feeling left behind, I decided to try something called a singles event for the first time in my life. The singles event I attended was limited to people in their 30s and 40s. Being 30, I was the youngest participant and was surprised to be able to talk to several men. I'm not what you would call ugly, but I've never been called cute or beautiful by those around me. So, I was genuinely surprised and pleased that so many people were interested in me. At the event, I met a man named Tom. He was my age, had been married before, and his 9-year-old son, Danny, was currently living with him. Though surprised that Tom had a 9-year-old son at 30, he was always smiling and kind to me. He had been working at a gas station since graduating from high school.
Danny would be thrilled to have someone like you for his mom,
Tom said with a smile, which made my heart flutter. Would you mind if we exchanged contact? Before I knew it, I was the one asking Tom for his contact info. I had never been the one to ask a man for his contact details before, so I was surprised at my own forwardness.
Yes, of course. Please do.
After successfully exchanging contact information with Tom, we kept in touch after the singles event and went on several dates. During our dates, Tom was always a gentleman, practicing ladies first. When Tom confessed to me after our third date, I was overjoyed. That's how we became a couple. Our dating period was like a sweet throwback to our teenage years, filled with fun times. Tom proposed about 10 months into our relationship. Both of us were keen on getting married, so the timing felt just right. Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. I embraced Tom, savoring the happiest moment of my life. This was the peak happiness of my life. I didn't know there was a terrible hell ahead. Meeting Tom's son, Danny, for the first time, I greeted him at their house. After observing me, Danny cast his eyes down and retreated to his room. Oh, maybe he doesn't like me.
No, it's okay. He's just a kid, confused by the sudden introduction of a new mom. He'll warm up over time.
Yeah, you're probably right. I agreed with Tom's words, deciding to take time to build a relationship with Danny. The next day, I went to greet Tom's mother at her house. I had already given this news to my parents. I was told that Tom's father had passed away a few years ago, leaving his mother alone. Nice to meet you. I'm Susan. Tom has been a great help to me. Then, my mother-in-law, Nancy, began to scrutinize me as if appraising my worth. Nancy was flashy in appearance, adorned only with high-end brands of expensive watches and jewelry. I could tell at a glance that she was a person with high pride.
Well, you're quite the average lady, aren't you? Not particularly beautiful, but not ugly either. Well, if you're going to be Danny's mom, I guess that's fine.
I couldn't believe the first words that came out of Nancy's mouth. There was no outright hostility, but the sarcasm dripping from her words weighed heavily on my chest. That these words came at our first meeting was even more unbelievable.
Mom, come on, don't say that.
Tom said, seemingly finding it funny, yet he grinned sheepishly.
Oh, my apologies. So, we'll be living together from next week, then, looking forward to it.
Living together? I was bewildered again by Nancy's statement.
That's right. Didn't Tom tell you? Living together was a condition of the marriage.
I looked at Tom, seeking help, but he ignored me.
Oh, I forgot to mention that.
He answered without a hint of remorse.
Our place is too small, so I thought we'd buy a bigger house. Counting on your help with the mortgage payments.
Tom said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. What was going on? Still unable to organize my thoughts, I left my in-laws' house. Swept along by Tom and Nancy's assertive manner, I ended up moving to a new house that Tom had arranged for us after our marriage. The house was a newly built detached home, and I was surprised he had bought a new one before we married.
Wow, big house.
Danny's eyes sparkled as he went exploring around the new home. It was a large two-family home, and I wondered how much the mortgage was. I was too scared to ask right away.
This will be comfortable. I'll take the largest room here, then.
Nancy appointed the largest room in the house, measuring about 20 square meters. I was surprised because it was the first floor and the room I wanted to use. Nancy, about that room, As I tried to protest, Nancy glared at me and said intimidatingly,
What? Do you have a problem?
No, not really. Overwhelmed by Nancy's domineering presence, I felt myself shrinking.
I'm hungry. Hurry up and make some food, old woman.
Danny yelled from afar. I was taken aback by being called old woman for the first time. Danny, I know it might be hard at first, but I'd like you to call me Mom.
Shut up, old woman. Just hurry up.
Contrary to our first meeting, Danny was boldly disdainful, repeatedly calling me old woman in a mocking tone. Come on, say something to him. Again, I looked to Tom for support, but he just rationalized the behavior.
Well, he's not used to it yet. Also, to Danny, I'm an old man, and Susan, you're old woman.
Besides, Susan, I'm hungry, too. Please make dinner.
I was astonished at Nancy's request. What?
Now that we're living together, Susan, you're going to cook for everyone, right? Oh, I'm so relieved. Now I don't have to do any housework ever again.
Nancy said something outrageous. Wait a minute. Can't we share the household chores? After all, I usually get home later than Tom. Nancy, you don't work, right? That's right. My job takes a lot longer than Tom's. I leave for work at 8 a.m. and get home around 9 p.m. During busy periods, I sometimes work past midnight, filling my days with nothing but work. In contrast, Tom usually gets to leave work on time. As for Nancy, she lives off her late husband's pension. I think it's only fair that she helps with the housework.
Oh, come on, don't you have any respect for the elderly? I can't move like I used to. Even walking a bit tires me out. And you want me to do the housework? What a terrible daughter-in-law.
Nancy dramatically clung to Tom as she said this. I was too appalled to respond. Tom should be helping with the chores, but he just turns a blind eye.
Hey, Mom's right. I bought this nice house, so the least you can do is the housework.
He says he bought a nice house, but in the end, it's my earnings that are going to pay off the mortgage. Tom's logic is absurd, and I dread thinking about our future life. Since moving into the new house, I realized I've been treated like a servant by Tom, Nancy, and Danny.
Old woman, this curry is too spicy to eat.
I'm bringing colleagues over tomorrow, so make sure you clean every corner.
My goodness, Susan, can't you even offer a drink to your husband tired from work? What a lousy wife.
Complaints about me pervade everything at home. I can't meet all your demands. I'm busy with work, but my pleas only earn cold stares from the family. I feel like Cinderella, bullied by her stepmother and sisters, enduring my married life. This isn't what I expected when I got married. Where has the kind Tom gone? Holding back tears of desperation, I felt overwhelmed with despair. 9 years have passed since then, and here we are. I'm still treated as an outsider and constantly receive snide remarks from my family. Lately, Tom comes home late, increasing my time with Nancy and Danny. I don't know if it's because of that, but they both seem to bully me to their heart's content. Danny, now a college student, has become more insidious in his sarcasm.
Tom's late home must be because you're not appealing, right?
Probably. Wouldn't be surprised if he's cheating somewhere. He's capable of that.
Nancy and Danny deliberately have this vulgar conversation within my earshot. I pretend not to hear and go on preparing breakfast for the next day.
Oh, if only Susan would leave this house. We could live here comfortably. After all, a stranger like her living in such a nice house should be grateful.
At Nancy's words, Danny bursts out laughing. I tremble with anger. Who is it that makes their daily meals? I want to retort, but holding back prevents further snide remarks. Tom, for his part, often comes home late and drunk, leaving me to take care of him. Aren't you drinking a bit much? Maybe he's up on the alcohol. When I caution him, Tom glares at me menacingly.
Shut up. I'm working hard every night. Let me drink as much as I like.
His bloodshot eyes are too intense to look directly at. Sighing, I help Tom out of his clothes and fetch him something to change into. How much longer will these days last? Maybe things will improve a bit when Danny gets a job and leaves the house. But I don't think he will live on his own just because he got a job. Where did I go wrong? Regrets pile up day after day. Day after day, my regrets only grow. It's not that I haven't thought about leaving, but then I wonder what would become of this nice house, or I should at least fulfill my parental duties until Danny gets a job. My unnecessary pride gets in the way. I've been serious since I was a kid, and I didn't want to throw things out in the middle. I wish that by tomorrow, a miracle would happen, and everyone would become kind. I was seriously hoping for something out of a fairy tale. Although no fairy tale miracle occurred, a life-shaking event happened a month later. What? Nancy died in an accident. I couldn't help but exclaim loudly in the office when I answered Tom's call and heard the shocking news. I couldn't believe it and listened carefully to Tom's story again. But indeed, as I first heard, Nancy had passed away. It happened in the afternoon while she was returning from shopping. She was hit by a car at an intersection and, due to the severity of her injuries, died at the hospital. Panicked by the sudden news, I was in total shock.
What's wrong?
I couldn't even respond properly when my coworker showed concern. I left work early that day to discuss the funeral arrangements with Tom, who also left early. I wonder when was the last time Tom and I had a serious conversation. Tom, visibly shocked, spoke in a dazed manner throughout. On the other hand, I couldn't muster any feelings of sadness, as much as it shames me to admit. I even felt a sense of relief. Of course, I couldn't say that in front of Tom, but I took it upon myself to properly arrange the funeral in his dazed state. As much as I disliked Nancy, skipping her funeral was not an option. After managing Nancy's funeral arrangements, I dressed in mourning clothes and headed to the funeral hall. Tom, her only son, was set to be the chief mourner. Danny was sulking and fiddling with his smartphone in the waiting room. As the time for the ceremony approached, Tom's relatives began to arrive in succession. As more attendees arrived, I got busy greeting them. I received words of condolence one after another, but honestly, I felt no sadness about Nancy's death, which allowed me to calmly receive everyone's words. While greeting the visitors, I noticed Tom was suddenly missing from my side. "Hey, do you know where your dad went?" Even when I asked Danny nearby, I got only an indifferent response.
I dunno. Maybe he's in the bathroom or something.
As the ceremony time drew closer, everyone was seated properly, but Tom was still nowhere to be seen. I headed towards the bathroom to look for him. But there was no sign of Tom in the bathroom, so I wondered if he might be in the waiting room. Just as I got there, I heard voices inside.
I was shocked when Mom died, but meeting Lily here turns those sad memories into good ones.
Really? That's great.
I was about to enter the waiting room when I was startled by a man and woman's voices from inside. Cracking the door open slightly, I saw Tom and a young woman, stark naked, embracing each other.
Lily, I love you.
Oh, stop it. You probably prefer your wife, don't you?
A woman called Lily, in a sweet voice, tried to ask Tom his true feelings.
No way. She's just a maid to me. I married her because she was convenient for taking care of the kids and stuff. Who would marry such an ugly person?
So, now that the child rearing is done, all that's left is to divorce your wife, right?
Yeah, of course. Just wait, Lily.
Hearing Tom laugh heartily, I felt a surge of anger from the pit of my stomach. What was this all about? Was I just a housemaid in Tom's eyes all along? Facing this harsh reality made me feel dizzy. Tom, I can't follow you any longer. You'll regret making me angry. I started recording a video of Tom and Lily's affair through the gap in the door with my smartphone. When I started recording, there was a beep sound, but the two lovers seemed oblivious to it. Irritated by this, I continued to record emotionlessly with my phone. Seeing Tom and Lily through my phone screen was a blow to my pride. After finishing, I quietly closed the waiting room door, and instead of heading to the funeral service, I went straight home. By now, there might be a commotion at the funeral service because of my absence. But I couldn't forgive what happened this time. Despite Nancy's death, Tom, her only son, was having an affair with a young woman before the funeral. Just thinking about it made my skin crawl. Once home, I furiously filled out the divorce papers I had previously obtained. After placing the completed divorce papers on the dining table, I started packing my belongings into a large suitcase. Being a minimalist, everything I took from the 9 years in that house fit into one suitcase. I grabbed my most important bank book and seal, and then I left the house for the last time. Tom called me about 2 hours into the funeral, but by then, I had already moved back to my parents' house. Both of my parents were at Nancy's funeral, so I was alone at home. I ignored Tom's calls while unpacking and locked myself in my room. I had only told my mom that I had run away from home due to some issues. I didn't want to speak to Tom for a while, so I planned not to answer his calls, but he persistently kept calling. If this continued, I wouldn't be able to live peacefully. Once my parents returned, I'd have to explain about Tom, and I didn't want that. Reluctantly, I decided to answer Tom's call. Hello. Do you need something from your mere housemaid? With as much sarcasm as I could muster, I started speaking.
Susan, what the hell have you been doing? Skipping my mom's funeral, what were you thinking?
Tom's voice was frantic, echoing loudly in my ears. While feeling the urge to throw my phone, I pressed it closer to my ear, determined to settle things with Tom. I just thought, maybe it's all right. I've always been treated badly by Nancy, anyway. I indirectly blamed him, without specifically mentioning catching him in the act.
What are you talking about? In what world does a daughter-in-law skip her mother-in-law's funeral? Also, when all the relatives and everyone came back to the house, you were gone, and there was a divorce paper on the table. We were just talking about what happened. You've embarrassed me.
Tom rattled on selfishly, trying to put all the blame on me. Disgusted by his attitude, I continued. Tell me, Tom, what's more disgraceful? Skipping the funeral of Nancy, who had been nasty to me for 9 years, or cheating in the waiting room on the day of your mother's funeral? I said it loudly enough to echo around the room, stating the damning fact. At that moment, Tom gasped, "What?" And in the background, I could hear his relatives whispering, "Cheating? What's this about?" Taking a deep breath, I spoke loudly again. "Everyone, I'm really sorry for missing Nancy's funeral today. The reason I wasn't there is because I caught Tom cheating with a young woman in the waiting room at the funeral hall." As I boldly stated the day's events, my voice carried through Tom's phone, causing a stir among the relatives with murmurs of what and what's going on.
Hey, Susan, don't make stuff up to play the victim. Everyone's confused.
Tom tried to feign innocence, but his voice trembled, betraying his nervousness. Making things up? I guess nobody would believe me if I just said Tom was cheating at the funeral hall without proof. So, let me send you the evidence right now. Cheerfully, I declared my intention to send the proof. I could feel the anticipation from Tom's relatives over the phone. I then sent the video of Tom's affair to the family chat group, which included Tom and Danny.
I got something on my phone.
Danny's voice came from the background. Swallowing hard, I waited for their reaction.
What the hell is this?
The first to scream was the man himself.
Wow, this is too much.
Danny was appalled seeing a video of his father with a younger woman. I felt somewhat sorry for exposing Danny to such an embarrassing scene of his dad, but Danny was also a main contributor to my long-term suffering. He's an adult now. He should face some harsh realities.
Tom, what have you done?
An uncle's voice boomed through the phone. The women were speechless, with no one uttering a word. Here is the evidence of the affair. It's impossible to stay sane after seeing something like this. The girl looked to be in her early 20s. After hearing he call me a maid and saying I was just a tool for child rearing, don't you think it's abnormal to attend your mother-in-law's funeral so nonchalantly? I spoke as if appealing to the relatives. After hearing all this, nobody dared to blame me. Instead, an uncle consoled me.
Susan, are you okay?
His words alone were a relief to me.
This is fake. Nowadays, videos can be easily manipulated. You've been busy with work, but were you actually making this ridiculous video? Ugh, that's disgusting. What a low woman.
Tom retorted, far from apologizing, and presented an absurd theory that the video was fabricated. I couldn't help but burst out laughing at this. Look, even if it were manipulated, how could I have footage of you doing such a thing, Tom? We haven't been intimate for a long time, have we? There's no way I could have such material. Isn't that a bit too far-fetched for an excuse?
Oh, no.
Tom stumbled over his words in response. I could hear the relatives sighing in disbelief in the background. And you've been coming home late recently, but you were actually cheating with Lily, weren't you? I prodded further. Tom quickly defended.
No. I've really been busy at work.
But I already knew he was lying. Oh, really? I thought you might say that, so I checked with your boss, Brian. And guess what? He said you've been leaving work on time every day.
Did you contact Brian?
Tom realized my information was accurate. Tom was clearly shaken. Yes. And you know, Nancy and Danny said it themselves, they wouldn't put it past you to cheat. After hearing that, I decided not to attend the funeral and to leave you. After pouring out my heart, I took a moment to catch my breath.
That's terrible.
Instead of Tom, an uncle voiced his sympathy for me. Encouraged by his words, I continued. You might have seen in the video, you thought I was ugly but good enough to be a maid, so you married me, right? There was never any love, and all the kindness you showed me until we got married was a lie. I've been used by you, Nancy, and Danny, and frankly, it's been the worst 9 years. Still, I tried to serve you all, thinking we were family. And this affair is how you repay me? So, I'm done with you. I've already filled out my part of the divorce papers. Please complete your part, Tom and Danny, and never contact me again. I shouted from the bottom of my heart, perhaps the most straightforward I've been since marrying Tom. Everyone was silent, likely because my argument was indisputably just. As I was about to hang up, Tom finally spoke, his voice trembling.
Wait. Divorce, seriously. I admit I cheated with Lily. It was a moment of weakness. Look, I've been stressed since Mom died. I only love you, Susan. Please don't divorce me.
Tom was desperately trying to keep me, without a single word of apology. He probably didn't want to divorce because my income was higher, and he feared losing the lifestyle he was accustomed to. Disbelieving Tom's self-serving attitude, I retorted sharply, "What? Are you serious? In what world does a wife forgive years of mistreatment and infidelity? I don't ever want anything to do with you again. And be prepared, I'll be claiming a hefty alimony." I turned off the call button aggressively. With this, there should be no more begging for mercy from Tom. Turning off my smartphone, I collapsed onto the bed, realizing I could now live freely, separated from that family. Tears of joy streamed down my face at the thought. A few days later, Tom, sobbing, submitted the divorce papers, and I was finally free from him. The video I recorded of the affair served as strong evidence, allowing me to successfully demand substantial alimony from Tom and his mistress, Lily. Tom had lavished Lily with expensive brand goods, and now, with the mortgage of his house to pay, he was left penniless. Moreover, burdened with a massive debt, he couldn't survive on his gas station job alone. Desperate for money, Tom tried to take what Danny earned from his part-time job, leading to a fierce argument and eventually their estrangement. Danny moved out, starting life in a rundown apartment with cheap rent. However, influenced by bad friends at college, he got heavily into gambling and betting, quickly running out of money and nearly getting evicted. Now, without attending college and working day and night, Danny struggled to make ends meet, leading to his academic downfall and eventual dropout. Considering Danny never helped around the house, it was easy to predict his physical toll from the grueling work. He was not a decent man, so I feel satisfied now. Lily, as I suspected, was still a college student with no intention of working, living off various men she seduced. For her, Tom was just one of many, unaware of being deceived, while he naively doted on the young woman. Thinking about Tom's pitiable state made me feel nauseous. Lily, who I sued for alimony, was also entangled in affairs with other married men and faced multiple claims. She vanished from Tom's life, leaving him even more destitute. Now, Tom is moonlighting as a nighttime traffic controller, enduring days of mere exhaustion. It's time for him to reflect on his past misdeeds. I want Tom to experience hell until he has fully paid off the alimony debt. Meanwhile, after suddenly returning home, I confessed everything to my parents, who were furious. They assured me I could stay as long as I wanted, giving me peace of mind to live at home. I'm wary of marriage now. Maybe someone good will come along in time, but right now, I'm happy to be away from that awful family, and I want to focus on the job I love.
It's your ex-husband's funeral, and you're the chief mourner. Get here right now.
Right? Everyone's waiting.
Receiving a call from an unregistered number, I answered with suspicion, only to hear my ex-mail start with something outrageous. My ex Phil was next to my ex Mill, and I braced myself for something. What's going on all of a sudden?
Well, it's because John has died. You owe him, don't you? It's only natural for you to be the chief mourner.
Am I the chief mourner? I had a headache because what they said was incoherent. But I attended John's funeral last year.
What?
Why would they be surprised? I had been informed about John's passing around a year ago and had attended the funeral. It seems in-laws probably didn't realize I was there.
What do you mean?
I could hear the tremble in my father-in-law's voice. Taking a breath, I said, "Well," and began to recount my attendance at John's funeral. My name is Sharon Anderson. I am 41 years old and work as a nurse. My 3-year-old daughter, April, has been picking up new words at daycare and talks to me like a little lady. She's at such an adorable age, and I'm ready to do anything, from work to household chores, for her. The truth is, I got married and divorced 3 years ago, so I am a single mother. My ex-husband's name was John Harris, a taxi driver who was 4 years older than me. When we first met, John was a gentleman, and although I was in my mid-30s, I found myself very interested in him. My income was higher than his, but I was so addicted to love with John at the time that I didn't even care. I thought we would continue to live happily ever after. I never doubted it until we split up. I want to explain, step by step, why I ended up divorcing John. I met John at a singles event that was held regularly. Engrossed in my work, I had missed the so-called right age to marry and started feeling lonely about spending my life alone. At 36, I thought my chances of getting married were slim, but nothing would start without action. So, I attended the mixer my friend recommended. It was a big city mixer, with roughly 100 men and women participating. It was targeted at women in their 30s and men from their 30s to 50s, so I was relieved I didn't have to compete with women in their 20s. However, as a 36-year-old, I felt disheartened as men seemed to prefer women in their early 30s. Then, by chance, I ended up at the same table as John, who struck up a conversation.
Do you feel a bit out of place? Would you like to talk more privately over there?
Yes, I felt the same way. John found a way into my heart and created time for us to talk alone. Moreover, he was quite a handsome man, and I guessed he must have been very popular when he was younger. He was a taxi driver by profession. I don't care about the income of the marriage partner, but some women will care about it. I thought that was part of the reason why the good-looking John was a single man.
It's my first time at an event like this. I didn't know how to behave. It took a lot of courage to talk to someone as beautiful as you.
Thank you. My face immediately turned red at the compliment. Honestly, I'm not the type who is often called beautiful, so I realized right away that John was just flattering me. Still, I was really happy to be complimented. Afterward, we gradually hit it off, talking about hobbies and how we spend our weekends, and by the end of the mixer, we had become quite comfortable with each other. John and I exchanged contacts, and we went on several dates afterward. He was a grown man, so I thought he would go out for a nice meal on a date, but he took me to the movies and the aquarium in response to my request. If I didn't think about income, he was the perfect marriage partner. As we continued to date him, I became very interested in John and genuinely fell in love with him. I never imagined that at 36, I would once again experience those bittersweet feelings of love. But I believed love was essential for marriage, so I took the initiative and proposed to John. He was surprised by my confession, but quickly smiled and said, "We'll start a serious relationship." Our serious relationship began, and given our ages, John proposed relatively soon after. I was delighted and immediately said yes. I was grateful and happy that he chose someone like me, who was not young anymore. When we started our married life, we were blessed with a child in just 6 months, which was a surprise to me. Many of my friends who got married in their 30s struggled to conceive, and I had almost given up on the idea of having children. But getting pregnant so easily was both a shock and a joy. I immediately told John about the pregnancy. Then John, looking completely astonished, widened his eyes as if he had never expected the news.
Sharon, is that true?
Yes, I had it confirmed at the hospital.
Really?
John quietly looked down. Is there anything wrong with him? But the next moment, he returned to his usual smiling self, saying, "That's great." I was completely reassured then, unaware that the situation was rapidly changing. Once my pregnancy began, I was constantly in poor health throughout the period. Some pregnant women travel or go to spas during their stable period, but I felt too ill to be active. I had severe morning sickness, couldn't do any housework, and even in the stable period, I felt lethargic. I had trouble talking with John and couldn't eat. Even when John asked me if I was okay, all I could muster was a vague yes, well. In response, perhaps giving up on conversing with me, John began to leave me alone during my pregnancy, which put more distance between us. Despite the loneliness, I believed that once the baby arrived, we would return to the joyful family life we had. 8 months later, I gave birth to a healthy girl. I named her April. Her chubby cheeks were endearing, and I felt my efforts in childbirth were worthwhile. John couldn't be present at the birth due to his work and didn't show up at the hospital either. All my calls were met with, "I've been really busy with work," and I couldn't argue with that. He never visited, and my hospital stay ended. I had to take a taxi home alone with April. Looking at the taxi driver's back, I wondered if John was out driving too. As I entered our home, saying "I'm back," I was startled to see unfamiliar women's bag on the table. What was going on? Before I could think further, I was shocked by the sounds of a man and woman from the bedroom. I approached the bedroom frighteningly and slowly to see what was going on inside. "What are you doing?" As I held April in my arms, I saw John hugging a woman 20 years younger than himself.
What the hell?
The naked woman turned around in surprise at my voice. John also looked at me with a surprise.
Sharon, you got discharged today. I didn't know.
John tried to act normal, but it was too ridiculous. "I told you yesterday."
Oh, I forgot. Sorry. I'm this kind of guy, so we're breaking up.
Perhaps feeling it was tiresome to be blamed, and since his affair was already exposed, John hastily initiated the breakup, which made me feel nauseous. Why, just after the birth of our child? I had no time to fall apart, questioning the situation.
As it is, please break up with him immediately.
The woman, showing no sign of discomfort in front of the wife of her affair partner, coldly suggested the separation. I was too shocked to respond. Finding out that John had already prepared the divorce papers added to the hurt and anger. He had planned to divorce me from the start. He was having an affair and enjoying himself, neglecting his wife who was suffering from poor health due to the pregnancy. When I imagined that he was cheating on me during my delivery, my spine went cold.
It's your fault. I married you at 36 because I didn't want kids, and yet you got pregnant so easily.
John cursed me in a tone I had never heard before. I cried as I signed the divorce papers. My baby, April, started crying, and I was flustered. John coldly remarked, "Baby is really noisy," sending a chilling look. After a nightmarish day, I staggered to submit the divorce papers. The situation unfolded so tumultuously that I couldn't keep up. I informed my parents and stayed with them for a while, as they were furious. My parents were ready to confront John with great fury, but I refused to allow it. Punishing him wouldn't heal my wounds and could lead to more resentment. If John resents me, it would only hurt me more. When I appealed to my parents, they reluctantly backed off. After that, with my parents' help, I raised my daughter April and was able to return to work once things settled down. As April was about to turn 2, and I was recovering from the divorce, balancing work and motherhood, an unexpected event occurred. The incident occurred on a Sunday afternoon. My parents, suggesting take some time to relax alone, had taken April out with them, leaving me to enjoy some peaceful time watching TV at my parents' home. The intercom rang, and I thought it was delivery, so I opened the front door. "Oh, it's you." I was speechless upon seeing the person standing there, someone I recognized. She was a young woman in her mid-20s, tall and slender with an attractive figure. She had flashy nails and makeup. Yet, she was strikingly beautiful, the kind to turn heads when passing by. I recognized her as the woman from John's bedroom. But why was she at my parents' house now? My mind was full of question marks and I was speechless.
Hello, it's been a while. I'm Hilda Harris. To cut to the chase, my husband, John, passed away recently. There is a funeral tomorrow, and you need to attend. Otherwise, your daughter's life will be at risk.
A woman named Hilda gave me a glaring look when she spoke plainly. Her eyes were like those of an enemy, and I felt fear towards this much younger woman. Above all, the threat that your daughter's life is at risk sent a chill down my spine. Is it true that John has died?
Yes, it was a sudden accident. He died instantly.
Hilda's emotionless response to her husband's death made me wonder if she lacked any human empathy. Well, why should I attend his funeral? You and John betrayed me. I don't want to speak ill of the deceased, but I don't think I have any obligation to attend his funeral. Even though I was terrified, I firmly stated this to Hilda. Then, Hilda's previously stoic face suddenly twisted grotesquely, taking on a terrifying expression. Reflexively, I let out a scream.
What a mess. If you don't come to the funeral, your daughter's life is at risk. Don't make me say it over and over.
I shrunk to her low voice as if she were crawling on the bottom of the earth. Her drastic change and the words, "your daughter's life," took on a chilling reality. I realized that if I didn't comply, April could indeed be in danger. Especially since this woman knew where my parents lived and could easily target my young daughter. To protect April, I inquired about the location of John's funeral.
Please bring some cash for the funeral.
Hilda repeatedly emphasized bringing funeral expenses, and once her message was delivered, she left my home. I was paralyzed with fear for a while, slumped in the entranceway. Later, my parents and April returned. Seeing me in a daze at the entrance, my mother asked what happened. I only told them that Hilda had come to our house to inform us of John's death. I did not mention being threatened using April as leverage or being told to attend the funeral. The following night, after work, I went to John's funeral. I told my parents I was going out to dine with a friend from my student days, left April with them, and left home in casual clothes, changing into funeral attire at the venue. When I registered at the reception, Hilda looked at me expressionlessly. I just gave a slight bow and proceeded to attend the funeral. Seeing my in-laws for the first time in a while, they looked much thinner than when John and I had divorced. I had limited interactions with them, only during marriage introductions and Christmas holidays gatherings. Both were quite talkative, and John had preferred not to have me meet them often, probably to avoid any complications. At the end of the funeral, I greeted in front of my ex-in-laws. Still, they seemed to have forgotten me, showing no particular reaction to their former deal attending their son's funeral, merely returning the greeting as they did with everyone else. It appeared they truly did not recognize me. Feeling no need to assert my presence, I quickly returned home once the funeral was over. A year after John's funeral, April turned 3. It marked 3 years since I had separated from John. I started living alone with April after John's funeral. I felt it was unfair to burden my parents further, and I was also afraid that Hilda might unexpectedly show up at my parents' house again. Since starting to live alone with April, our life had been peaceful, but one day, an unknown number called my smartphone. It was after picking up April on my way home from work as usual. April was sleeping in her room while I was preparing dinner. I didn't know the phone number, so I hesitated whether to answer, but I pressed the call button and pressed the smartphone to my ear. "Hello?" I spoke softly, gauging the caller's intent. Then, from the other end of the phone, I heard the caller's harsh concern, which struck me as odd.
It's your ex-husband's funeral, and you're the chief mourner. Get here right now.
Yes, come on. Everyone's waiting.
The callers were John's parents, and my ex-Mill started with an outrageous demand. My ex Phil was next to my ex Mill, and I braced myself for something. What's going on all of a sudden?
Because John has died, you were involved with him. You should naturally be the chief mourner. Oh, and make sure you bring some cash for the funeral.
Am I the chief mourner? I had a headache because what they said was incoherent. But I attended John's funeral last year. As I responded with disbelief, my in-laws exclaimed incredulously, "What? What could be so surprising?" I had received notification about John's death about a year ago and even attended his funeral. Probably, my in-laws hadn't realized I was there.
What do you mean?
I could hear the trembling in my ex-father-in-law's voice. Taking a breath, I said, "Well," and began to recount my attendance at John's funeral. A year ago, Hilda suddenly showed up at my parents' house and told me to attend John's funeral, threatening my daughter's life if I didn't comply. She also insisted on bringing some cash for the funeral, just like you are now. I calmly narrated the events of the past year to them. On the other end of the line, I heard two people gasp.
What are you talking about? That woman did what? Can we meet you in person right now?
Excuse me? The in-laws asked me, their voices tinged with desperation. Right now? Well, April is sleeping at home, so if it's at my house, that would be okay. I didn't want to get involved, but considering the unpredictable behavior of my in-laws and Hilda, I reluctantly agreed.
All right, I'll come now. Please give me your address.
After telling my in-laws my home address, they arrived in about 30 minutes.
I'm sorry to disturb you so suddenly.
My ex-in-laws entered the room without hesitation. I was so taken aback by their behavior that I forgot to serve them tea.
We want to know everything. What did Hilda tell you?
It seemed my ex-in-laws had a harsh view of Hilda. Every time her name was mentioned, their faces contorted with disdain. As I said earlier, I was threatened by Hilda and attended John's funeral. I even greeted you, but you didn't notice me.
What a thing to say.
My ex-mother-in-law's body trembled.
That woman, she stole everything valuable from our house and ran away. We ended up paying for the funeral expenses ourselves.
Her eyes blazed with anger. I see, that's happened. Hilda also took away all of my ex-husband's savings, which should have been used for funeral expenses. So my troubled ex-in-laws were trying to get money from me by making up John's funeral, which was supposed to have already finished. If I brought the cash to John's funeral, they planned to take it and run. From what I heard, they were really terrible, but my ex-in-laws kept talking as if they were the victims.
Hilda claimed she married John because he deceived her into believing he was the CEO. She lashed out at us. But the truth is, she's a big spender and has accumulated a lot of debt. We ended up being her debt guarantors, and now it looks like we'll have to pay off her debts. She's truly despicable.
They expressed their frustration with twisted faces. My ex-mother-in-law claimed she had always opposed the remarriage to Hilda and even suggested that Hilda might have orchestrated John's death for insurance money. My ex-in-laws had a pretty bad reputation for Hilda. As an outsider, I felt like covering my ears for their terrible words. I was also worried that April might wake up due to their loud voices. Ultimately, despite their outrage at Hilda, they still tried to deceive me with a fake funeral story to ask for money. They never apologized when John cheated and we divorced. They were filled with anger at Hilda, ignoring what they had done. I was on the verge of exploding with the anger welling up inside me. Just then, my phone rang. Another call? Noting the frequency of calls today, I glanced at the screen to see yet another unknown number.
Maybe it's just a sales call.
Suggested by my ex-mother-in-law, but feeling uneasy, I softly touched the call button and turned on the speaker. Hello? As I spoke softly, a loud, heavy-breathing voice came from the other end of the phone immediately.
Hey, you've moved, haven't you? Where are you now?
What? Hilda was the caller. This made both my ex-in-laws and me exchange looks. I wondered how Hilda knew my phone number, but then, seeing the guilty expressions on my in-laws' faces, I realized. They must have given Hilda my phone number, probably telling her to call me and demand money to repay their debts. What kind of nerve they had, this in-laws and Hilda, who calls her husband's ex-wife with nonchalance.
You should have informed me about the move. I realized I never got a wedding gift from you. Send me cash $1,000 immediately.
As expected, when Hilda demanded money, I let out a heavy sigh. A wedding gift? $1,000 in cash? It was absurd to talk about a wedding gift now, especially after my ex-husband had passed away. She took my husband and I got divorced, but I'm not a tolerant person to give a wedding gift to someone like her. I felt ridiculed and filled with anger. Suppressing the urge to smash my phone and careful not to wake April, I calmly told Hilda, I don't have a penny to give you. I know about the huge debt you have and that you stole valuable items from John's parents.
What? Why would you say that?
Hilda seemed shocked, and her agitation was clearly conveyed over the phone. I heard it from John's parents, who are right here next to me. They're the ones who gave you my number. They came asking me for money, just like you. Really, all of you are the worst. I lashed out at everyone present, including my ex-in-laws. Not only Hilda but also my ex-in-laws showed their outrage, exclaiming, What?
This wouldn't have happened if she hadn't taken our money.
That's right, Sharon. This happened because you were cheated on.
Excuse me. Wait a minute. I'm the victim here, okay? John lied to me, saying he was the CEO, and I fell for his marriage fraud. You're the ones who raised your son to be a fraud.
Through the phone, war broke out. As I listened to each person's selfish assertions, my headache worsened. It's absurd that John's parents are brazenly causing a commotion in my house, and even more outrageous is the fact that I, the primary victim, am the one being blamed by them. I took a deep breath as they started fighting, feeling my head hurt. Let me say something. First, to John's father and mother, I am the person who was hurt by John. Isn't it wrong to ask such a person for money? I haven't even heard an apology from you.
We don't care about that. John is the one who did wrong.
Even in this situation, the ex-in-laws did not admit guilt. Their stubborn denial pushed me over the edge. Oh, is that so? Then I won't hold back. I'm going to report you to the police for attempting to defraud me with a fake funeral.
What?
At this, my ex-in-laws seemed shocked, visibly shrinking at the mention of police.
Please, not the police.
Hilda heard my ex-mother-in-law begging for her life on the other end of the phone, and she let out an indecent laugh. But I said to Hilda, What are you laughing at? Of course, I'm planning to report you to the police as well.
No way.
Hilda's voice, filled with genuine surprise, resonated loudly from the other end of the phone.
Why should I have to deal with the police? I told you I'm the victim. I've been poor and struggling with money. When I met John through a dating app, he was all sweet talk, saying, I'm the CEO, I can make your life easier. I didn't even know John was married. I was shocked to learn about you, his wife, and I even had to pay alimony. I was the one deceived. I'm the victim. Please don't sue me.
Hilda kept insisting she was the victim. Listening to her, I wondered why John was surrounded by such terrible people, making my head ache even more. Firstly, Hilda claims she didn't know John was married to me, but that's absolutely a lie. I caught her and John together on the day I returned home from giving birth to April, and when their affair was exposed, Hilda nonchalantly asked for a quick divorce. If she truly hadn't known about John being married, she would have been confused at that moment. It wouldn't be surprising if she were cursing John. But in reality, Hilda seemed prepared, as if she had already factored in my existence as John's wife and had a response plan. So, the idea that Hilda was deceived into dating John is implausible. She might have believed his claim of being the CEO, but even that was likely driven by her greed, making her responsible for her actions. I couldn't accept her telling me she was the victim. Worried that the commotion would wake April, I finally decided to put an end to it all with a decisive statement. Please stop lying. I won't be fooled by your tactics anymore. I will hang up now and call the police, so be prepared. And to you all, please never appear before me again. Goodbye. I first hung up the phone and then expelled the in-laws from my home. They pleaded until the end, saying, please, not a report, but I ignored them and immediately dialed 911. After a while, the police arrived, and I explained the entire situation to them. My ex-in-laws, for attempted fraud, and Hilda, suspected of fraud and theft, are likely to be arrested.
Mom, what happened?
April emerged from her room and asked me, noticing my sweaty state. Nothing, honey. How about we move again?
Are we moving out?
Yes. I found a lovely new house for us.
Yay.
Realizing that staying in the current home might lead to unexpected visits from my ex-in-laws and Hilda, I decided to move. I'm also planning to change my cell phone number. This should ensure that I never have to deal with my ex-in-laws and Hilda again. After completing the moving process, I settled into a new apartment near my workplace and learned new facts about ex-in-laws and Hilda. Although my ex-in-laws failed to defraud me, it appears they successfully swindled money from relatives and coworkers. Believing that those close to them would willingly give money, their deceitful methods filled me with disgust. Those who gave money initially might have done so out of goodwill, but they became suspicious due to the frequent requests for more funds. I was horrified to discover that my ex-in-laws were habitual fraudsters. Moving away to avoid further victimization seems to have been the right decision. Hilda's claim that her parents were in poverty was a lie. She had amassed debt from purchasing luxury brand items. To repay her debts, she worked night jobs, reportedly feigning affection to her clients to have them lavish her with expensive gifts and accessories. It might not have been problematic if her clients were voluntarily lavish with gifts, but one of them realized he was being scammed in a romance fraud and reported it to the police. Hilda's numerous crimes have been uncovered, making her crimes even more serious. I don't want to be related to people like my ex-in-laws and Hilda who try to scam people for money. I hope they reflect on their actions and atone for their crimes while under police custody. Since moving, I've been able to live peacefully. There have been no calls from my ex-in-laws or Hilda, and April and I are enjoying our days together. April has recently found a boy she likes at preschool, and she tells me about him in a lisping tone of voice. Listening to her innocent feelings brightens my mood as well. I hope these peaceful days will last, praying daily as I head to work again today.
Hello.
Where the hell are you? What's going on? Stop messing around.
Mike's voice was trembling over the phone. He seemed very angry. What? Why are you so worked up?
Worked up? It's John's graduation today. Where are you on your son's graduation day?
My son. When I asked with a raised tone, Mike shouted irritably.
John, all the other kids have their families with them at the graduation. I'm the only one here alone. Families are supposed to attend these things together.
He was clearly furious, but that didn't matter to me at all. I continued without a care. I don't have a family.
Huh?
Mike gasped softly on the other end of the line. Do they have no idea what they've been doing to me for the past 13 years? How they've treated me? If so, fine. Whether they're aware or not, I'll do things my way. I won't let them have their way anymore. My name is Anna. I'm a 40-year-old part-time housewife. I've been married to Mike, who often says being a housewife must be easy. I'm so jealous, for 13 years. He's been grumbling about me being a full-time housewife since we got married. But let's not forget, it was Mike who asked me to be a stay-at-home mom for the kids. Did he forget that he asked me himself? It's just not fair. After the kids got a bit older, he started saying things like, a housewife is just a jobless parasite. He constantly treated me like a freeloader. Mike's snide remarks increased as the kids grew older. It got so bad that I started working part-time a few years ago.
But it's just part-time work.
Now he sneers and nothing changes. Time flies. Our eldest son, Rick, is now 18, and our second son, John, is 15. Our sons, though, there's no blood relation between them and me. They are Mike's stepchildren. When I married Mike, the boys were 5 and 2. Time passed quickly, but it was never easy. I was told I probably couldn't have children. When Mike asked me out, I nervously told him this.
Living normally is fine, but you likely can have kids.
I'd been told this by my doctor due to irregular periods. So when I found out Mike had stepchildren, I was honestly relieved.
I didn't have a good eye for women, and these kids have suffered for it.
When we got engaged, Mike confessed this to me apologetically. I heard his ex-wife had cheated on him. So, I tried my best to comfort him. It's not your fault, the kids will be fine. Let's raise them together so they won't feel lonely.
Anna, thank you.
Mike's income was nothing to brag about. Ideally, I wanted to work full-time and support our household. But after hearing that, I couldn't.
I think it's very important for kids to have their mom at home. So, Anna, I want you to be a full-time housewife and make them feel secure.
All right, I understand. Managing on just Mike's income was incredibly difficult. We constantly reviewed our expenses, cutting down wherever we could. Entertainment and beauty expenses were, of course, trimmed, and I avoided buying clothes for myself as much as possible. But I couldn't let the kids go without. If anything had to be cut, it would be my stuff. I genuinely believed that.
Sorry to make you go through this, thank you.
At first, Mike appreciated it. But over time, he began to look down on me.
You're not pretty to begin with, and you're not young anymore. So why don't you work on yourself a bit? It's embarrassing.
I do wear makeup. I take care of myself as much as I can, but I don't have as much money or time as I did before we got married. It hurts when you say things like that. It's different from when I was single and only had to think about myself. The more time I spent taking care of the kids, the less time and money I had to spend on myself. Mike used work as an excuse to avoid doing any housework. I asked for his help a few times, but he always refused.
I trust you to handle everything, Anna. Besides, the kitchen is a woman's domain, right?
I never asked him to leave it all to me or to keep his hands off. Before we got married, I thought he was manly and wonderful, but he turned into a typical domineering husband. The kids were my only source of comfort. Right after we got married, the kids were 5 and 2. If they had been a little younger, they might not have been so shy, but Rick especially was very resistant to me.
I want mommy. You're not my mommy.
Rick. Holding the crying Rick, I almost cried too. Even so, I felt like they were starting to warm up to me, little by little. But then, an unexpected obstacle appeared. That is Mike. He should have been my biggest supporter, but I never expected someone so close to become my enemy. Mike probably couldn't stand the kids getting closer to me than to him.
Anna, you've gained weight, hadn't you? Look at that flabby body. It's proof you can take care of yourself. You guys don't want to end up like that, right? Good thing you're not related by blood.
He mocked my body and my appearance endlessly.
Once you stop caring about your looks, it's over. Anna's unemployed, so she doesn't meet people and loses any sense of beauty. You guys better be careful.
I couldn't stay quiet after that. Hey, can I talk to you for a second? It's one thing to think that or say it to me, but don't insult me in front of the kids. Of course, it made me feel terrible, but more importantly, I couldn't bear the thought of the kids picking up Mike's way of speaking. That was the one thing I wanted to avoid. Kids are still growing and absorb everything, both good and bad. Mike, their father, was openly looking down on me, their mother, even if I'm not their biological mother. I didn't want them to see that.
What's that? You're just upset because I hit a nerve, right? Don't use the kids as an excuse.
Yeah, it hurts to hear that, but I'm really worried about the kids' future.
Shut up. Stop blaming others. I'm not insulting you. I'm just stating facts. It's ridiculous to say we can't speak the truth.
Even though I explained calmly, Mike flew into a rage and wouldn't listen anymore. Instead, his insults towards me escalated. And whenever I tried to discipline the kids, Mike would invariably interfere. Hey Rick, look, there are still some small veggies left on your plate. Let's finish everything, okay? During the meal, I noticed the scattered vegetables left on Rick's plate and casually pointed it out. From beside me, I heard a loud sigh, and Mike grumbled irritably.
You're unemployed with no income, yet you sure are good at nagging.
It's the usual pattern. Mike looks at Rick and John, tilting his head as if seeking their agreement. I'm not nagging, I'm just pointing out manners, so they won't have trouble in the future.
Ha! You're going out of your way to do that for kids that aren't even yours.
I felt my head heat up. How could he say such things in front of the young children? I was too stunned to find the right words. I felt so pathetic. From that day, I started avoiding conflicts with Mike and tried to keep him in a good mood. I didn't want the kids to see us arguing. Mike was a simple person. As long as I flattered him, he stayed in a good mood. I knew this was the wrong way, but I couldn't think of any other way. Divorce would be the easiest solution, but what would happen to Rick and John then? I couldn't abandon them. So, I focused on keeping things as peaceful as possible. I did my best to make it my top priority. And then, before I knew it, 13 years had passed, bringing us to the present. The brothers, you were so young then, had been completely influenced by Mike. Their thinking mirrored his, even though their appearances didn't. Because Mike belittled me in front of the kids, they started to think it was normal. They began to insult me openly.
Hey, wait a minute.
Rick called out to me, frowning.
My friends are coming over tomorrow. You should go out. It would be embarrassing if they saw you. If you were younger and prettier, I wouldn't have to deal with this. It's such a hassle.
All right. It wasn't just teenage embarrassment. He genuinely thought I was an embarrassment. I had become accustomed to such hurtful remarks as they were repeated over and over.
Oh, leave some money before you go. And did you iron the clothes I asked for? Also, the college application deadline is coming up. Take care of it.
Even though he said he was embarrassed to be seen with me, he still relied on me for everything. He had inherited this trait from Mike. Then John chimed in from the side.
Hey, did you check out the tutoring places for me? Oh, and don't forget, I've got a practice session tomorrow. You'll need to give me a ride.
Without waiting for my response, Rick and John returned to their rooms. To them, it was only natural to ask me to do things for them. There wasn't a shred of gratitude. It probably never even crossed their minds. At dinner, the root of all this and the brothers' role model, Mike, looked at me with a puzzled expression and brought up a subject.
You should start working and earning money.
What? Mike sighed dramatically and exaggeratedly slumped his shoulders.
Do you realize how long I've been supporting you? I've been lenient, but how many years have you been unemployed now? Are you thinking at all?
His words made me put down my fork in anger. I'm not unemployed. Since John started elementary school, I've been working part-time. That's right. When the kids were too young for school, I was a full-time housewife because it felt wrong to leave them alone. But once John started school, I took up a part-time job in the mornings. However, even though I started working part-time when John started elementary school, he frequently got sick. Each time, I had to apologize to my employer and take time off from work. When I had to take an entire week off, I pleaded with Mike to let me work at least one day. Just for a day, even half a day, can't you watch John? I thought he could take my place for just one day since I'd been the one taking time off all this time. But his response was incredibly irresponsible.
Huh? No way. I'm busy with work. Can't you figure that out? No way. Why should I?
He said I'm busy with work. In other words, Mike didn't consider my part-time job to be real work. I knew from that moment how low his opinion of part-time jobs was, but I couldn't stand being treated as if I were unemployed. I'm working part-time, even though it's within the tax exemption limit. I earn $800 a month. When I argued against being called unemployed, Mike, Trick, and John all started laughing.
You say that so proudly. $800 is so pathetic.
Exactly. And how can you be so smug about it? That confidence is something else.
Mike looked triumphant, flaring his nostrils in pride at the boy's words.
Seriously, they are right. Besides, these guys don't need much help anymore, so you should start contributing more. Since you're not related by blood, we won't recognize you as family if you don't.
As I watched the three of them laughing together, something inside me, which I had tried to keep intact, started to crumble. I can't take it anymore. I can't keep pushing myself, or I'll break. For my own sake, I can't do this any longer. I'll fulfill my final obligations, and then leave this house. That day, I made a firm decision.
John's graduating from middle school tomorrow. It's such a relief to think he'll be a high schooler soon.
A few months after I made my decision, Rick was accepted into college, and John was about to graduate from middle school. At night, after the kids had returned to their rooms, I was washing dishes when Mike, in a good mood, drank his alcohol behind me.
Honestly, before I married you, I was really struggling with what to do.
Mike, slightly drunk and feeling good, started talking more.
My mom said she couldn't watch Rick and John anymore. I was thinking of putting them in a facility. But then I married you just in time. I'm really lucky.
I had vaguely heard this story from my mother-in-law shortly after getting married. Mike had taken in the kids, but had mostly left their care to his mother. For a woman nearing 60, taking care of young children must have been physically demanding. Eventually, she couldn't handle the burden anymore and told Mike to take responsibility. That's when he married me. Really, from start to finish, I've just been convenient for you. I'm amazed at myself.
Huh? What's the matter? Are you sulking? Don't be a pain. Once both of them get jobs, let's go on a trip or something. That should make you happy, right?
I deliberately made noise as I washed the dishes, pretending not to hear Mike's words. When I finished, I sat across from Mike and kept pouring him drinks. Here, drink more. Tomorrow is John's big graduation day.
Oh, that's right. You're finally being thoughtful.
Mike, pleased, drank glass after glass, his face turning red. In the end, there were so many bottles and cans scattered around that I couldn't tell how much he had drunk. The next day, I was riding the train with a clear mind. The graduation ceremony should be starting about now. I muttered to myself, gazing out the train window and enjoying the peaceful moment. When was the last time I felt this calm? I glanced at my phone, which was on silent mode, and saw a flood of missed calls. Most were from Mike. There were also a few missed calls from Rick. Judging by the number of missed calls, They must have been in a panic this morning. Normally, Rick and John were early risers. Even without my wake-up call, they would come downstairs on time. So, one of them must have found Mike asleep at the table this morning. I even left several alarm clocks around Mike as a favor. So, they probably didn't oversleep and miss the graduation ceremony. Well, the real problem starts from there. I left the suit, tie, and socks for the graduation ceremony in the closet and left the house. As a final act of kindness, everything was washed or dry cleaned. Normally, anyone would be able to dress themselves if everything was prepared like that. But Mike isn't normal. For the past 13 years, he has relied on me for everything. He probably didn't even know which suit to wear for the graduation ceremony. Normally, you'd prepare the night before. I know Mike wouldn't have done that. Even if he got drunk or passed out, he always had me to clean up the mess. I wonder how they felt when the person they depended on suddenly disappeared. I was curious about their reactions. Did they panic? Maybe they got furious. Either way, it doesn't matter to me now. After a while, the train arrived at my destination, and I got off with my luggage. As I walked through the ticket gate and turned off silent mode on my phone, it started ringing. It was a call from Mike. Hello.
Where the hell are you? What's going on? Stop messing around.
Mike's voice was trembling over the phone. What? Why are you so worked up?
Why? It's John's graduation ceremony. Where are you on your son's graduation day?
My son. When I asked with a raised tone, Mike shouted irritably.
John, all the other kids have their families with them at the graduation. I'm the only one here alone. Families are supposed to attend these things together. And you didn't even prepare my clothes. If my mom hadn't come over, it would have been a disaster.
I calmly responded to his complete misdirection and scapegoating. The fact that you can rely on your mother at your age for something like that is what's really concerning.
What did you say?
Mike's voice was furious. But that didn't matter to me. I continued without concern. And what do you mean by family?
Huh?
I cut him off. I don't have a family.
Huh?
Mike gasped softly on the other end of the line. In the past 13 years, I have never felt like I was treated as part of the family by any of you.
That's not true. What are you talking about? We ate, slept, and lived together. Isn't that what makes a family?
Being constantly insulted about my appearance and weight, mocked as an unemployed parasite, and treated like a maid. And now you call that a family? What are you talking about? Are you stupid? After I spoke quickly and forcefully, there was a brief silence before the call abruptly ended. A few minutes later, my phone rang again, this time from Rick. The timing was too perfect. Mike had probably contacted Rick in some way.
So, you had a fight with Dad, but you went too far. Dad was furious. If you apologize now, he'll probably forgive you. Hurry up and apologize and come home. Dinner will be late otherwise.
I sighed in exasperation. I don't know exactly how Mike explained our conversation to Rick. But neither Mike nor Rick ever thinks they are at fault. Their main concern is always their own well-being. That's why Rick said what he did earlier. He didn't even question why I would leave the house and miss John's graduation. Instead, he's worried about his dinner. Apologize, why? And you guys can handle dinner on your own. My words seemed to irritate him. Rick's tone became harsher.
What the hell? It's irresponsible to just leave like that. Don't you get it? Mom, Dad has been feeding you and taking care of you. I've always thought you should be more grateful for that.
Mike's words echoed in my head.
Who do you think is providing for you?
I've heard that line countless times. Mike's catchphrases have become ingrained in the kids like a curse. It's so outdated. Do they realize they are making things harder for themselves in the future? I sighed and spoke to Rick. You and John are just like Mike.
What are you talking about? Of course we are. He's our dad.
Yes, and that's why you should be careful. You're not suited for modern marriage.
What?
Rick sounded confused. Like Mike, he lacked self-awareness.
What? You're saying crazy things just because you're upset.
His voice shook, just like Mike's when he got agitated. Fine, anyway, there's something else I want to discuss, so I'll come by soon for a final goodbye. Can you tell Mike that?
A final goodbye? What do you mean? Wait, hey.
I'm not waiting, goodbye. Even after I hung up, the phone kept ringing, but I ignored it until it finally stopped. A month later, I went to Mike's house to settle things once and for all. When I rang the doorbell, Mike rushed to the door with loud footsteps.
Anna, you came back. I knew you would. I believed it. Believed it.
After a month, Mike looked somewhat haggard. Maybe it was because he wasn't well groomed. And his clothes were rumpled and dirty, and he looked pale. More than anything, he seemed exhausted, with no energy left. As he approached and grabbed my shoulder, I quickly shook his hand off. Don't touch me, we're not family anymore.
What? What are you talking about, Anna? We're just taking a break to cool off, right?
No one ever said that. Mike had just convinced himself of that. It's amazing how he can come up with such convenient farts. In a way, it's impressive.
I was so happy because I thought you had finally come back to me.
No way, it's actually the opposite. I'm here today to settle things cleanly with you.
Settle things.
Mike's face twitched as he asked. I nodded. I want a divorce. Let's thoroughly discuss alimony and property division. When I entered the living room, it was empty. Rick and John, you should have been home, were nowhere to be seen. Where are the kids?
They're in their rooms. They don't know you're here. Should I call them?
No need. This was going to be a messy divorce discussion, not a pleasant chat. It's not something the kids needed to hear. Besides, it had only been a month since I left, yet the house had changed drastically. Clothes were scattered everywhere, and the table was cluttered with dirty dishes and plastic bags. The sink was so full of dishes that I couldn't see the bottom. There was no way to do the dishes in such a state. Ignoring the mess, I moved some things off a chair and sat down. Shall we get started? I wanted to settle this as quickly as possible. As soon as I sat down at the table, Mike kneeled at an unbelievable speed. Kneeling, please stop, that won't help, and it won't change my mind. Mike, still on the floor, shook his head vigorously.
Please don't divorce me. Over this past month, we've realized how important you were.
Mike's voice was desperate. In the past, I might have been swayed by this, but I had grown stronger over the years. Such childish tricks wouldn't work on me. Of course, without me, your slave, there's no one to do the housework or serve you.
A maid, that's not.
Mike averted his gaze. I smiled back at him. All the housework you mocked me for was tough, right? All those small, tedious tasks. I knew someone as clumsy and impatient as you could never handle it.
What? How dare you?
Mike glared at me sharply. In his excitement, his nostrils flared as they usually did.
You act so high and mighty. I could handle the housework if I wasn't working. I'm too busy with my job. You only worked part-time, so you wouldn't understand my struggles.
You're right. I wouldn't understand the struggles of someone who dumped their kids on their second wife while cheating with another woman.
What?
Just moments ago, Mike's face had been flushed with anger, but now the color drained away, leaving him pale.
Cheating? What are you talking about?
Did you think I didn't know? I was aware of everything. Mike's lips trembled.
If you knew, why did you act normal? And now you want a divorce.
I did it all for the kids. Since the doctor told me, I thought I'd never have children. But by marrying Mike, I became a mother to Rick and John. Mike's affairs, his verbal abuse, the kids' disrespectful behavior. I can't count the number of times I thought about getting a quick divorce and leaving. But I stayed because I loved those two boys. So, I decided to endure until Rick finished compulsory education, no matter what.
No way.
Unbelievable.
I turned towards the voices and saw Rick and John standing there. Their faces were even paler than Mike's.
Mom,
I don't expect anything from you. I don't even want an apology, but from now on, I'm not here. There's no one to do things for you for free anymore. Rick and John stood there, looking awkward and silent. I turned back to Mike. You're still cheating, aren't you?
Huh? Well.
Not denying it immediately means he's admitting it. If you agree to the divorce right now, I won't demand alimony from your lover.
What?
On the other hand, if you refuse, I'll go to her and even to your workplace. So, which will it be? Mike was deep in thought. Sweat beaded on his forehead and trickled down his cheeks, dripping onto the floor.
Are you really never coming back?
Tears welled up in his pleading eyes. Absolutely not.
She can't do any housework at all. She doesn't work either. There's no benefit to marrying her.
Mike, stumbling over his words, pleaded with me. He still didn't understand how wrong his thinking was. What do you mean by benefit? You need to understand that you shouldn't expect benefits from family. What did you ever give me? All I got was suffering.
I am sorry.
Don't expect from others what you can't provide yourself. 13 years of resentment slipped out. Mike screamed and then agreed to the divorce. He filled out the divorce papers I had brought without protest. The divorce was finalized soon after. As for alimony, he agreed to pay it in installments. Incidentally, his lover dumped him right after the divorce.
I only found you attractive because you were taken. Now you're just a single old man.
Mike, usually full of self-confidence, was devastated by this. Hearing that he was without benefits and unattractive from both me and his lover was a considerable shock for him. Even though it was just the truth, he couldn't accept it. This shock affected his work, causing him to make frequent mistakes. Both kids seem to have changed a bit. Rick, in particular, is desperate to change. He was harshly dumped by his first girlfriend, who told him, "I don't need an outdated boyfriend like you. I've reached my limit, so I don't plan to get involved, but I hope he succeeds if he can." However, given how things are, it will probably take a lot of effort. Now, I've started a new life near my hometown. It's my first time living alone since before I got married. I decided to quit my previous part-time job and look for a full-time position near my new place. It might be tough at my age, but part-time work left me with too much free time. Though I had been overworked before, having nothing to do didn't suit me. If I can't find a full-time job, maybe I'll take on multiple part-time jobs. Or maybe I'll find a new hobby. That's what I've been thinking lately.